Let's get real. TV deaths are supposed to be fake, right? But sometimes, reality kicks down the writer's door and flips the script for good. Imagine tuning in, expecting your favorite character to survive the wildest twists. And suddenly, the loss is all too real. Why do these true-life tragedies hit so much harder? And which TV deaths actually change the game, on screen and off? Stick around, because what's coming up is far from your usual goodbye scene. You might never watch these shows the same way again. Mr. Hooper, Sesame Street. If you ever wondered why an entire generation still tears up at a children's show, look no further than Mr. Hooper's last episode. Will Lee, who played the kindly shopkeeper on Sesame Street, wasn't just a character. He was a warm, steady anchor for kids and adults alike. When Lee passed away in 1982, the show could have quietly written him out or just replaced him. But Sesame Street did something unheard of. It faced the truth head-on. In a landmark episode, Big Bird learns that Mr. Hooper is gone and isn't coming back. And suddenly, every kid was learning about real loss from a puppet with feathers. The writers refused to sugarcoat it, using gentle honesty instead of fantasy. The cast's raw emotions weren't acting. They were grieving a friend right in front of the camera. It changed the way TV handled death forever. And if you ask anyone who watched back then, Mr. Hooper's goodbye wasn't just a storyline. It was a lesson in facing the hard stuff together, with a box of tissues right next to the cereal. Finn Hudson, Glee. You want to talk about a gut punch? Nothing prepared fans for the day the music actually stopped for Finn Hudson. Corey Monteith was the show's heart, the football star, with a goofy grin and a voice that made even the toughest high schooler believe in second chances. When Monteith died unexpectedly in 2013, it sent shockwaves far beyond the set. Glee could have skipped ahead or mumbled some explanation, but instead, they delivered The Quarterback, an episode so raw, it barely even named the cause. The grief was real, not scripted. You could see it in every face on screen. Those weren't just characters crying, those were friends and coworkers mourning someone they loved. The tribute episode became more than a plot point. It was a public memorial, filled with real memories and unfinished dreams. Suddenly, every "Don't Stop Believin'" held a sting. Glee didn't just lose a character, it lost its anchor, and fans were left holding the same ache as the cast. Who knew a show about high school drama could leave such a real scar? Leo McGarry, The West Wing. No show did political drama with more brains or heart than The West Wing, and John Spencer's Leo McGarry was its beating pulse. Leo was the rock, the guy who kept the White House from flying off the rails. When John Spencer died suddenly, right as his character was running for vice president, the cast and crew were forced to face the kind of loss that no rehearsal could prepare them for. The writers didn't shy away. Instead, they turned Leo's election night death into a moment that froze everyone on screen and watching at home. What followed wasn't just another dramatic plot twist. It was a show stopping cold, letting real grief play out in prime time. The silence spoke louder than any monologue, and the impact lingered long after the credits rolled. Even years later, fans talk about Leo's last campaign as if they lost a friend themselves. If you want proof that sometimes TV can be heartbreakingly real, just watch those final episodes. Suddenly, the West Wing felt emptier, and so did we. Fred Andrews, Riverdale. Archie's dad was the kind of TV father you wish you had. Steady, selfless, with a hint of rock and roll edge thanks to Luke Perry. When Perry died in 2019, Riverdale had a choice: sweep it under the rug or honor the man who grounded all the chaos. They chose the latter, and the result was one of the show's most unforgettable moments. Fred Andrews' final act was saving a stranger from a speeding car, a hero's send-off that mirrored Perry's real-life kindness. The town mourned, but the tears on screen felt achingly genuine. Even Archie's toughest moments couldn't prepare viewers for this goodbye. The show brought in Perry's old friend Shannon Doherty as the woman Fred saved, adding an extra layer of reality to the tribute. Riverdale lost more than a character. It lost its heart, and the viewers felt it deep down. Fred's story became a reminder. Sometimes the most powerful scenes are the ones you never wanted to write. Dr. Charles Kroger, Monk. Monk might have been the world's best detective, but when it came to dealing with his demons, he needed Dr. Kroger. Stanley Kamel played the patient, understanding therapist who guided Monk through the chaos. After Kamel died in 2008, the show didn't just cast another actor or brush past it. Instead, they let Kroger's absence hit Monk and the audience like a tidal wave. Suddenly, the world's most anxious sleuth was left drifting, his anchor gone. The tribute episode is raw, with Monk struggling to process the loss just like Kamel's real-life friends on set. Fans still say losing Dr. Kroger felt like losing a piece of the show's soul. It wasn't just a clever script twist, it was reality, breaking through the screen, showing that even geniuses sometimes have to face grief with nothing but memories and a lot of unsolved pain. Richard Gilmore, Gilmore Girls, A Year in the Life. You don't just lose a grandfather on Gilmore Girls, you lose a pillar of the family. Edward Herrmann's Richard Gilmore was the ultimate patriarch, dignified, stubborn, fiercely loving in his own old-school way. When Herrmann died before the Netflix revival, the writers didn't just write off Richard quietly. They made his absence the emotional fuel for the entire miniseries. Lorelai and Rory are forced to face what it means to lose the man who shaped their world. Richard's funeral, full of heartbreak and awkward moments, feels painfully real, because it is. The cast was mourning not just a character, but a colleague and friend. Herrmann's photo looms over every family dinner, and the loss ripples through every episode. Fans weren't just watching TV, they were invited to grieve, to remember, and to realize that even in a world of fast-talking banter, some losses are just too big to joke about. Judge Dennis Happy Boyle, Ally McBeal. You didn't forget him, did you? Judge Dennis, better known as Happy, was a scene-stealing curmudgeon who made every court case in Ally McBeal unpredictable. Phil Leeds, the actor behind Happy, passed away in 1998 from pneumonia. The show could have quietly shuffled him off stage, but instead, it gave Judge Dennis a send-off right in the courtroom. One moment, he's dishing out his usual quirks and demands, "Let me see your teeth." The next, he's suddenly gone. The cast's shock wasn't just for the script, it was real. The writers used just enough footage to wrap up his storyline, making viewers feel the rug had been pulled out from under them. That sudden void was more than a plot device. It was a reminder that sometimes TV has to stop pretending and just let reality in. Judge Dennis might not have been the show's star, but his last day on the bench hit hard for anyone who was paying attention. Gramps Lassie. If you grew up watching Lassie, you remember Gramps, kind, wise, the glue holding the family together. George Cleveland wasn't just playing a role, he was the grandparent every kid wanted. During production in 1957, Cleveland died of a heart attack, and the show was left with a huge dilemma. What do you do when your real-life foundation is suddenly gone? The answer, you say goodbye, for real. The writers gave Gramps a send-off that stunned viewers. One day he's there, the next, the family is mourning and facing life on the farm without him. There was no dramatic fanfare, just the kind of quiet grief that echoes in real homes. The show lost its warmth overnight, and even decades later, fans remember Gramps' exit as a turning point. In a series about a heroic dog saving everyone, this time, nobody could save Gramps. Sometimes the bravest thing a TV show can do is let you feel the loss. Sergeant Phil Esterhaus, Hill Street Blues. You could always count on Sergeant Phil Esterhaus to close every briefing with, "Let's be careful out there." Michael Conrad brought a gentle gravitas to the role, making him the dad of the precinct, a steadying presence in the madness. But midway through the fourth season, Conrad died of cancer, and the loss couldn't be spun with a tidy script. The writers chose not to give Esterhaus a heroic blaze of glory exit. Instead, he died of a heart attack off duty, a quiet shock that sent the squad into real mourning. Viewers felt the hole in every scene. The series used his catchphrase in tribute, and Conrad's Emmy-winning legacy lives on in TV history. Hill Street Blues wasn't just a cop show, it was a pioneer in handling real life with real respect. And Esterhaus's last "Be careful" still rings in the ears of fans who know exactly what was lost. Mrs. Wallowitz, The Big Bang Theory. She was the loudest off-screen presence in sitcom history, Howard's mother, always yelling from another room. Carol Ann Susie's voice gave Mrs. Wallowitz a legendary status, even though we never saw her face. When Susie died unexpectedly in 2014, the writers didn't recast or fade her out. Instead, they let the absence echo through the show. In a gut-punch moment, Howard answers a call and learns his mother passed away peacefully during a trip. The house suddenly feels empty, and the silence is jarring. The group gathers to remember her, and for once, even Sheldon is at a loss for words. Mrs. Wallowitz's death turned a running joke into a moment of real grief. It proved you don't have to see a character to miss them when they're gone. And sometimes, the absence is the biggest punchline of all. Coach Ernie Pantuso, Cheers. Everyone at Cheers loved Coach. He was sweet, simple, and the beating heart behind the bar. Nicholas Colasanto's charm turned Coach into the bar's resident philosopher, always ready with a bizarre story or oddball advice. But when Colasanto died in 1985, the writers didn't look for a quick fix. Coach simply wasn't around for a while, and then, in the season 4 premiere, it was confirmed he had passed away. The grief was real, and the show didn't gloss over it. His absence haunted the bar, and viewers felt it just as keenly as the regulars. Woody Harrelson came in as a new character, but nobody ever truly replaced Coach. Cheers never tried to write him out with a joke. They let the loss be felt. A silent toast to the man who made everyone feel at home, on screen and off. Neil Winters, The Young and the Restless. Soap operas are known for wild plot twists, but nothing could have prepared fans for the real-life heartbreak behind Neil Winters' final scenes. Christophe St. John played Neil for nearly 3 decades, becoming a steady, trusted face in Genoa City. When St. John died suddenly in 2019, the shockwave was felt across daytime television. The show didn't dodge the tragedy. Instead, it confronted it with an emotional arc where Neil's absence is discovered, and the characters and the cast truly grieve. The funeral episode pulls no punches. You can see the sorrow is genuine, not scripted. Neil's legacy is honored in real time, and viewers got a chance to say goodbye alongside the actors who knew him best. For a genre famous for miraculous comebacks, this was a loss that couldn't be undone, and the void left behind is still felt. Bill McNeel, News Radio. News Radio was never the same after Phil Hartman's sudden and shocking death. Hartman played Bill McNeel, the egotistical news anchor whose sarcasm fueled the office chaos. In 1998, Hartman was killed in an unthinkable tragedy, and the sitcom world lost one of its brightest comedic talents. The 5th season opened with a somber tribute, as the staff of WNYX coped with Bill's off-screen passing from a heart attack. The usual jokes were swapped for awkward silences and real tears. You could tell the cast wasn't just acting, they were mourning a friend. The show's balance of humor and heartbreak in that episode still stands out as one of TV's most raw, honest farewells. News Radio carried on, but Bill McNeel's empty chair was a permanent reminder. Sometimes the laughs have to pause for real life. Dr. Virgil Swan, Smallville. Smallville already had superhero-sized emotions, but nothing hit harder than the passing of Dr. Virgil Swan. The role was played by Christopher Reeve, yes, the Superman, whose cameo electrified fans. In real life, Reeve's story was one of courage and resilience after his accident, and his appearance on the show was nothing short of legendary. When Reeve died in 2004, Smallville honored him by revealing Dr. Swan's off-screen death through a news report. It wasn't dramatic, but it was deeply respectful, and you could feel the weight of losing a real-life hero who had given so much hope to others. It wasn't just Clark Kent who lost a mentor, it was every viewer who believed in the impossible. Smallville's tribute was a class act, and for many, the symbol of Superman became even more meaningful after that loss. Sergeant Nick Yamana, Barney Miller. Every police station needs someone to keep things grounded, and Sergeant Nick Yamana did just that, with a side of terrible coffee. Jack Sue made Nick lovable, wise, and always good for a sly joke. Midway through the 5th season, Sue passed away from cancer, and the impact on the cast was massive. The writers didn't pretend everything was normal. Instead, the season ended with a special episode called Jack Sue, a Retrospective, where the actors dropped character and spoke directly about their friend. The cast raised cups of coffee in tribute, turning a running joke into a heartfelt goodbye. It was one of the first times TV truly broke the fourth wall to mourn a real loss. Barney Miller moved forward, but nobody ever made coffee or left a mark like Nick Yamana. J.R. Ewing Dallas. Nobody did villainy like J.R. Ewing, and nobody owned a cowboy hat like Larry Hagman. For decades, J.R. was the reason millions tuned into Dallas, loving and hating him in equal measure. But in 2012, Hagman's death forced the show to end J.R.'s story for good. The writers leaned into the drama, building a murder mystery around his final exit. But fans knew the real truth. Dallas lost its heartbeat. The scenes where the Ewing family grieves are packed with raw, unscripted emotion. Hagman's shadow looms over every episode, a reminder that some TV icons are simply irreplaceable. It wasn't just who shot JR anymore, it was how do you carry on without him? For many, the answer was you don't. You just remember. Selma Hacker and Florence Kleiner, Night Court. Night Court fans know the bailiff's chair was cursed with tragedy. First came Selma Diamond as Selma Hacker, a gruff, chain-smoking delight who became an audience favorite. When Diamond died from cancer after season 2, the writers bid her character farewell with a tender on-screen loss. Enter Florence Halep as Flo Kleiner, only for the pattern to repeat itself. Halep also passed away from cancer after just 1 season. Night Court handled each loss with surprising warmth, letting the cast and viewers share in real grief. For a comedy, the sudden losses hit surprisingly hard, leaving fans to wonder if some characters are just too big for the screen, or maybe the world. Peter Gregory, Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley built its first season on awkward genius and brutal business sense, all embodied in Peter Gregory. Christopher Evan Welch brought the role to life, making every scene both hilarious and painfully true to startup culture. When Welch died of cancer during filming, the show lost a rare spark. The writers handled it with subtlety. Peter dies off-screen while on a business trip, and the shock hits the characters and viewers like a punch to the gut. Suddenly, the race for tech gold felt hollow, and even the show's trademark cynicism couldn't cover the sense of loss. The real-life tragedy echoed in every storyline that followed, proving that sometimes the strangest minds leave the biggest holes. Owen Granger, NCIS, Los Angeles. Owen Granger was a tough, no-nonsense NCIS assistant director who seemed indestructible. Miguel Ferrer played him with gravelly authority, becoming a fan favorite in no time. But behind the scenes, Ferrer was fighting a battle with cancer. Rather than write him out quietly, the show let art imitate life. Granger's health deteriorates, his tough exterior giving way to something far more vulnerable. When the character leaves to spend his last days with family, fans knew what it meant. Not long after, the show acknowledged Granger's passing with an episode full of understated sadness. Ferrer's loss was felt by everyone, from his castmates to fans who admired the way he gave even the hardest characters a beating heart.